WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and twitch.tv. Welcome back, everyone, to WoW Killer. I'm Garrett Weinzerl, joined, as always, by Taliesin. Welcome back, dude.
I'm Taliesin. Hello, welcome. Garrett, I just want to say, every week when you play that opening with its lovely music and your pre-recorded voice bit, and your voice sounds so deep and lovely, and, you've done a good job on that. And I always think to myself as that's playing, Garrett's got such a lovely voice. And then you start talking, and I'm like, it's even better. It's even better in real life.
Not where I thought you were going with this.
I know. I had you in the first half, right?
Oh, it took a left turn into compliment town.
And it's a joy for me to be here with your voice.
Oh, well, I have to compete with your lovely voice, Taliesin, and the only way I can do it is by not putting a lot of air behind my voice because I'm exhausted because of the hour when we record this.
Well, you always complain about the fact that it's early in the morning when you record. Think about it from my point of view. I've been awake for a good 8 hours by now. I'm ready for bed. I'm tired. I've exerted myself muchly today. I've had a shower. This is my second cup of coffee. Do you know what I did? I had a phone meeting with my accountant today about corporation tax and pensions. And I've also managed to edit some video and play some WoW as well and have a poo. So basically, it's been a long and tiring day, and and then I come here with your voice, and your voice is all like, "Ooh, hello, I'm Garrett," and it's all like, "Oh, wow, those dulcet tones sending me to sleep. I love it. Oh, it's so nice." And so all I'm saying is, there's the arousal that I'm feeling as well. So basically, it's all difficult, and you've just got up, so it's fine.
Yeah, which means I'm probably
life is hard.
Yes, it is. Which means I might be dealing with my own morning standing at attention. Who knows?
Wow, there we go. There's an image no one ever needed to know. Do you know what? I'm pretty sure that's the case in most podcasts which are hosted by straight white males, which is of course all of them.
Not now, Taliesin, not now, because thank you, COVID-19. If everyone didn't have a podcast before, they do now. Have you tried going on Amazon and shopping for a new podcast mic? You can't. They're sold out.
Really? Is that a fact?
You can't. Wow. They're completely sold out.
Good. Does that mean there'll be no more podcasts?
Well, because there are all the podcasts. There are all the podcasts that will ever be being produced now.
Wow. I'm glad to be a part of that gold rush. I'm glad to be in relative terms, considering this podcast. It might be my first ever podcast, but it ran for a good couple of weeks before the whole lockdown thing, right? So I'm relatively a stalwart, a pro, a veteran. That's me.
Taliesin, ladies and gentlemen. Well,
that was some very awkward dead air time there.
Yes, it was.
You might want to work on your podcasting technique. If you need any tips, you can talk to me because I'm a stalwart and I've been here for quite a while. I kind of know how it all goes down. So if you need any advice on that, it's just a little bit of feedback just to get us going.
This is what happens when you compliment me, Taliesin, and the chat room starts talking about how nice my voice sounds. I sit here and I just drink in how awesome the chat room thinks my voice sounds. And then I'm going to get excited and I start talking really fast and my voice gets higher and it doesn't sound as cool.
You're making your voice sound sexy on purpose right now as well. I love it. Oh, thank you for playing the part. And if you think that's sexy, wait until you get a load of today's topic, because it is basically the actual sex, but in WoW form. Garrett, what is our topic today?
I'm fairly certain we had agreed on something completely different, but we got together for the pre-show and we're like, Torghast? Yes, Torghast.
Yeah, Torghast, you thought it was going to be Sylvanas.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. We can just move on. We can wait and see where this expansion takes us.
That episode would also be the sex, by the way.
Sylvanas?
Yeah,
the totally. Sylvanas episode would be the sex. Would be the sex.
Are you kidding? listen, Sylvanas is a deep and interesting character, okay? But let's not pretend she'd be quite as popular if she wasn't also the sex.
I mean, I didn't want this episode to divulge.
When I look at fan art of Sylvanas, she's not wearing a comfy jumper.
Although, if someone out there would love to make that fan art now, I would be very pleased.
I'll buy an artwork off of anyone who makes a good artwork of Sylvanas wearing a big comfy boyfriend jumper and drinking a cup of warm blood.
Nice. Wonderful. I mean, I did not want this episode to devolve into which Warcraft characters we are the most into, as if we were going to go on a Zoom date with them. But here we find ourselves.
Although, if we were to go on a Zoom date, if you were to go on a Zoom date with any one of your choosing, Garrett, then you'd be in from the start with a voice. Like, can you imagine? Maybe keep your camera off, put a hat on, I don't know. But then, like, with the voice, oh my goodness.
Well, I mean,
amazing.
I mean, you just line up a bunch. You would just have to line up a bunch of Zoom dates with Americans, and they would just be like, "Oh my God, what an accent! It's wonderful.
Yeah,
I'm into it."
It's actually truth. Truth. It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, today we're going to be talking Torghast. But Garrett, I am not a world famous WoW creator. I'm just playing a part right now. And I haven't got alpha access, and I haven't been keeping up with WoW news, and I don't know what Torghast is. What is it, Garrett?
It's a roguelike, but in World of Warcraft.
Garrett, I've never played a video game before, and I only listen to this show to listen to your amazing voice. And what's a roguelike? I don't understand what you're talking about, but I love hearing you say it.
I'm so glad you asked, so that I can inform you that Google exists, and you should look it up for your damn self, so that we can get on with our lives and talk about this mode.
Thanks for this incredibly informative podcast. Oh, should we explain something? Nah, Google it, scrub. In fact, why are we even going to talk about Torghast? Just go and read about it on Wowhead. You don't need to listen to this podcast. You don't need to ever listen to this podcast. Just go and play WoW.
Okay, let's take this in the other direction, because you went there. How far down this rabbit hole do I need to go, Taliesin? Do I need to explain to you what a goddamn video game is?
I'd like you to explain what a roguelike is at the very least. I need you to, because also something that I've noticed in the discussion about Torghast is that people have kind of slightly different definitions on what the term means in video gaming terms. So what is a roguelike for you?
Typically a dungeon crawler, usually procedurally generated levels of said dungeon as you crawl through it, where you are usually expected to die and have some sort of small advantage, be it through knowledge or a power-up that you get to start over with. That's a roguelike for me. Wikipedia says that it's a subgenre of role-playing video games characterized by a dungeon crawl through procedurally generated levels, turn-based gameplay, tile-based graphics, and permanent death of the player character.
Yeah, makes sense. And so it's like a kind of endless, repeatable sort of grind.
Yes, my favorite.
Which is different every time.
Yeah, the first one I was ever made aware of was Spelunky. My favorite in the history of existence is FTL. And everyone else seems to just love Dead Cells, which I still haven't played.
Dead Cells is great. Yeah, totally. And so, the implementation of Torghast into World of Warcraft in Shadowlands. So Torghast is the Tower of the Damned. It is probably you've seen it in portrayed in the Shadowlands trailer. It's when the big sky opens up above Icecrown, and like the other tower is kind of coming down through the rip in the sky to almost kind of touch the top of Icecrown. It's got the same kind of design, kind of like a spiky evil Naru looking thing. That is the very top of Torghast. It's just like in the upside down, So the idea of Torghast in Shadowlands is that it is accessed, we don't know how yet, and you enter there, we don't know how many times yet, and you play through it, and you collect materials for your legendary item, which you will need to sort of be forging, because Shadowlands has craftable legendaries. And part of the big gameplay loop of Shadowlands is to create your own legendaries and give them the attributes that you want, that you choose. Player choice and agency are buzzwords in Shadowlands.
Okay. Oh, cool. That sounds awesome. I choose a weapon.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Oh.
Yeah, that agency is closed, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's a shame. And you can't choose trinkets either. Because of the way that, on-use effects on weapons and trinkets apparently scale much more powerful than they do on other pieces of gear. So the only way to keep, if you were allowed to make a weapon, that would be the first thing that everyone made. So they're not doing that. To which I say, what's wrong with that?
Well, I guess good on them for understanding the challenges of their own game.
Well, I would love to make a weapon. I've been meaning to craft my own legendary weapon forever now. I'm going to call it Taliesin's Law, and it's going to be awesome. And that's long been my idea. I always think that should have been what replaced artifact weapons instead of Azerite armor. One of a video we did towards the end of Legion was, what will happen to our artifact weapons and what will replace them, where we speculated, that obviously a similar system would exist in BFA or the next expansion. We didn't know it was BFA then, and what form would that take? And I was like, it's got to be a craftable weapon. You can't just do something rubbish like make it bits of armor. You've got to, or God forbid, a neck. That'd be awful. No, it's got to be a crafted weapon, and you've got to be able to make it, and you forge it yourself, and then you've got to be able to name it, and then you never need to replace it ever again. You can carry it from expansion to expansion because it's your weapon, and you are creating a legend and a story around it. And you can find upgrades to like change its appearance, and you can add new kind of effects to it and things like that. So it's a cosmetic and a power progression reward system that you're involved in there, much like the artifacts, but a lot more personal, I guess.
Boy, it wouldn't have been lovely if that's what they had gone with.
Yeah. And so when they said that you can craft your own legendaries, I thought, here we go. At last, they're using my idea and it's going to be brilliant. But no, but you can craft them in every other slot apart from trinkets and legendaries. And the materials that you get to do this are found in Torghast, I think exclusively. I think that's the only place you can go and get them. So Torghast is going to be part of your gameplay routine. We don't know the specifics of that yet. I guess we'll discuss it in this episode, like how we think that's going to work. And
yeah, there's a decent amount still kind of shrouded in mystery, and even after an interview in the last week, which almost seemed to make me have more questions after the interview than before it. But I guess more so because it just spurred my brain in certain directions that I wasn't really thinking about Torghast before.
Yeah. I think that interview for me, it closed a lot of doors on a lot of potential with Torghast and a lot of ways it could have gone. And it opened a lot of doors with a lot more questions in more specific areas. So I've still got as many questions as I did before that interview with Paul Cubitt, the game developer. And that was on Towley's channel on his stream. It's a really good interview. You should go and check it out.
Yeah.
But the questions I have are just as numerous, but they're a lot more specific than they were before. Which is progress, I guess.
Yeah.
So at the moment, Torghast is on the alpha. It exists in complete isolation on the alpha. To be honest, the only other things in the alpha right now are what feels like maybe a third or a half of the questing in Bastion, which kind of cuts off at a very specific point, and the dungeon from Bastion, the Necrotic Wake. And class changes and things like that. You've got the new intro area, which is Exile's Reach for 1 to 10 new characters, and that's just about it. Like some changes to the UI and character customizations are sort of filtering in every now and then. So Torghast is one of the big new things on the alpha, and it exists entirely in isolation. You just go to an NPC, you talk to him, and you can go in as a group or solo. And you can start from level 1 and work your way up, or you can jump straight in at level 25 on what's being called heroic difficulty, and start from there. And I think people have managed to get up to level 72 before the game kind of stops them.
Oh wow!
But and that's the game going, okay, you've had your fun, get out. Whereas that won't happen when it's live. There'll kind of be a cap in that you simply won't be able to get further in the available gear or something like that. But it won't be it would still have the illusion of going on forever, I guess.
Or so they think. They don't understand how good I am at this game, Taliesin. I will break their mode.
Massively underestimating how much how awesome I am at this game.
Yeah, well, not me.
I'll bust through any challenge they put in front of me.
I have a feeling they're probably underestimating someone out there. Definitely not me. So
we have both played Torghast, though.
We have, yeah. It's up on the alpha now for testing, as you mentioned. And this is, it's for me. There's a lot of weight, a lot of potential. There was a lot of potential baggage with this mode, because I wasn't sure how hyped to be for it, or like how seriously to take it. After BFA, after an expansion with so many new systems. That many of which didn't land for me. The things I like from BFA were kind of more traditional things that have always kind of been around and been added to World of Warcraft. But things like Warfronts and Island Expeditions didn't really do it for me. And so I was looking at Torghast going, well, you're something new. Are you gonna be something that really excites me that I want to play, or are you gonna be kind of like a Warfront or an Island Expedition, which to me in BFA just kind of seemed like things that got in the way of my normal WoW enjoyment. And so I went in to the alpha pretty trepidatious. And I wouldn't say I had expectations. I wouldn't say they were low or high. I just didn't really know what to expect from this. And I came out of my I've only probably spent about 3 or 4 hours in there. But I came out of my time with it ecstatic. I really like it. And since, thanks to the interview, the Tavoli interview that we both referenced, it's become clear that we won't be as powerful as quickly as we are getting on the alpha in terms of how quickly anima powers are getting doled out.
Yeah, so the basic kind of structure of Torghast is that you go in. And it is procedurally generated. It's like, it slots together a lot of pre-designed kind of corridors and rooms. And I think Paul was saying there's like 5 kind of overall aesthetics with many, many options within that it then kind of slots together. And I've put in probably around 24 hours all in all of play in Torghast on my stream so far. And I am starting to recognize patterns and rooms and locations and stuff, but I am still surprised at how much variety I also find there, and how often I come across something I've never seen before. Even now, and this is the first build, so granted there probably won't be as big a dump of stuff and new assets and things, but they will be adding to those assets and what have you all the way through. The alpha, I guess. So I mean that's incredibly impressive. Like just the scale of the job of putting these things together. And there's the occasional hole in a floor every now and then that I fall through because it hasn't been kind of slotted together properly or something like that. And of course, the enemies then are procedurally generated as well. And they get incredibly challenging. And if you're in a group, there's a lot of CC that needs to be happening. It's kind of like the first time you went into those kata dungeons, and they took you by surprise with how much kind of different type of play they needed and how much coordination they needed. You can't just go in sort of all guns blazing at the higher room levels. One of the roguelike features is that the power-ups you get while you're in there are these anima powers. So there are these red orbs that drop from powerful mobs, or sometimes not powerful mobs, or sometimes in pots and things that you smash around the sides of the rooms, which is like super Diablo, and I love that.
Oh yeah. If you're like me in Diablo and you cannot walk past a single destructible because there might be something good in that, well, congratulations, it's in World of Warcraft now.
Yeah. It's cool, and I mean, yeah, it's a very Diablo type mode anyway. But they also drop from kind of like one-off little missions that you can do to help people out as you wander the corridors, and you get them from chests. Sometimes they're just at the end of a corridor that you might not have gone down because you can see the portal to the next floor ahead of you, and so your intention is to get through each floor and get to the next one. But ideally, you also want to collect as many power-ups on each floor as you can before you get to the next one. And the next floor is, in practice, supposedly more difficult. That's not always the case on the alpha at the moment. There's a sense that the enemies don't really scale as you go up floors at the moment. So if you start at level 25 on the heroic mode, that first floor, that level 25 that you go in at, is as difficult as it's going to get because you have no power-ups, and the more you kind of power up as you go through, the enemies are kind of staying the same difficulty. So it actually, ironically, on the alpha gets easier as you go up floors at the moment, and you're more powerful, but the enemies aren't.
Yeah, you kind of just start steamrolling.
Yeah, totally. And again, that's not going to be something that happens when it's live. But the interesting thing about these anima powers is, and because a big comparison that I've heard people use is the comparable towers from Final Fantasy 14, right? So you've got the Heaven's Gate Tower, is it? And there's another one as well.
You're talking to me about a Final Fantasy game?
Yeah. I did a bit of research on this before Torghast happened, and those are used mostly for kind of leveling now, I believe, and they're just a fun way to kind of like level new characters and things like that. And they don't go as overboard on these powers as Torghast does, because these anima powers, they're pretty intense.
It depends. There's different levels of them, and they're even color coded, so that we simple World of Warcraft players can understand how rare they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's white, there's green, there's blue, there's purple. If you
see a nice purple one, you're like, oh yeah.
But then I read it and I'm like, oh, but this blue one actually synergizes way better with how I'm currently building.
Exactly, because those anima powers, when you pick up an orb, it'll often be just one power that you have to accept, or it will be a choice of 2 or 3 powers that you can choose between.
At the moment on the alpha, I feel like I'm seeing more of the choose ones than I am like single.
Oh yeah, me too. The majority of them are choose ones, but sometimes they're singular as well. So just putting that out there.
Yeah.
And they have all manner of different effects. Some of which are kind of like standard effects, like your stamina is increased by X amount, or your crit is increased by X amount. A certain type of mob becomes explosive when you kill it, and deals damage to other mobs around it. Kind of pretty standard stuff like that. But much more interestingly, there's, again, more commonly, class-specific anima powers that change your specific abilities, or even covenant abilities. So I've played through it quite a lot as Discipline Priest because I'm awesome. And, there's things like your Shadow Word Pain, which is your damage over time ability. You can get abilities that increase the amount of time that ability lasts, or you can get abilities that make it deal its damage faster in a shorter amount of time. As you can imagine, those two abilities together are really good. You can get abilities that heal your party when that ability expires on an enemy. You can get an ability that uses up all of the damage on that dot every time you use Shadow Word Death. So there's lots of interplay and specific builds you can make, which is really interesting, and we'll get into like the different classes' abilities in a little bit as well. And the thing is, there's loads of these abilities. At the moment we're hoovering up, like vacuuming up, sort of sometimes 3 or 4 per floor. When we finished a normal run that we went through, which was 11 floors from like 13 to 24, I finished with 69 different anima powers.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, I know. And it was nice. And we were like just absolutely crushing everything ahead of us.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it was super fun because there are no time limits on these floors either. That's really important. The way that you get the fail state is there's a death tally. So you can die. It's not like a true roguelike.
Oh, is it you with like
insta permadeath?
Is it you with like eyeliner and some like black dyed hair? Is that the death tally? Is it a very emo goth tally?
Oh, nice. Yeah, and it's basically like it's me, but in Spider-Man 3.
Oh! I'm so glad that's the direction you took this.
Yeah.
I'm imagining.
Yeah, that's the kind of edgelord I am. When I go edgelord, I go Spider-Man 3.
So edgelord, but you love doing a jazz dance scene while you're edging.
Yeah, a dangerous jazz dance scene. While I'm edging, that's a different community altogether.
That is a different community. I did not mean for it to. No, moving along. So you have a death tally if you're in there solo.
at the moment on alpha, it's 3 deaths, and then you get like an extra 2 deaths for the group per member of the group. So if there are 3 of you, the death counter will be 7. And when you hit that, you've got like 10 seconds before the Tarragrue is released. And the Tarragrue is this huge, badass, supposedly unkillable monster, although people have been proving that wrong on the alpha, who can maybe be slowed and led in different directions and stuff, but is essentially this big steamroller who just comes from the beginning of the level and chases you down and one-shots you.
But as you mentioned,
that's the end of your run.
You can't, because of that like 10 seconds, like you have a very short window where you can like try and make a mad dash for the portal to the next room.
It's infinitely more interesting than just hitting 10 deaths or whatever and then getting kicked out of the dungeon. Because there is sort of some leeway there. As I mean, I've got some good stories about that leeway from our stream yesterday when we were playing, and it's. I mean, we've had some amazing fun with the Tarragrue.
Well, and
it's fantastic.
That makes it so much more interesting than just being this thing that just insta kills you the second you hit that death cap, right? Like the fact that it is an actual mob in the world that, you know, can be messed with if not killed. It's such a cool layer to this mechanic, like it, and also makes it feel like an actual monster, like something that does somewhat adhere to the rules of World of Warcraft. Which...
Oh, and by the way, when the Tarragrue kills you, that doesn't kick you out of the dungeon either. Like the idea is you have to res again and then click on the gate, which is at the beginning of every level, which allows you to exit Torghast. Because there's no way you, like, you know, if the Tarragrue's ahead of you, you're not getting past the Tarragrue, you know. So you're leaving the dungeon. Your run is over at that point, and you can't go back down to floors you've already been to. But if he kills you near the beginning of a level, and you die, and you're just the kind of person like me who, whenever you die, you're just like, oh, come on, and you just press res again straight away, and the Tarragrue is still there, he's just going to kill you again. And then you go, oh, for goodness sake, I get it. This level is over. I'm done. My run is finished. Res. And he kills you again. And you have to be patient and you have to wait so he gets far away enough so that when you res again, you have time to click on the portal, say yes, and then kind of half out of there before he comes back and kills you again. I've died like 6 or 7 times in a row to the Tarragrue in like a matter of like seconds. It's brilliant. I love it. It's the biggest troll. It's amazing.
At the risk of just agreeing with you for an entire episode, I'm with you. I think it's actually kind of rad that that's how it works, that you kind of have this moment of terror of like, no, I need to escape. It's coming.
And then there are these amazing moments where you just completely randomly play the Tarragrue and just beat it. So we yesterday on stream we went into a level which was kicking our ass. It was a really simple level. It was one of those floating ones, which I forget what they're called, because I have been actually writing down like the different aesthetics, the 5 different aesthetics. They have different names, and I've been trying to learn what they are.
Where do
it's one of those great.
See the names
Above the minimap.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Oh. So Scoldus Hall is one of them. Fracture Chamber is another one. There's like the over something. Anyway, but it was one of the Super Diablo ones, which is like the floating platforms in kind of space. And like it's all like dusty brown space and cool like cages floating upside down with flames in them and stuff. Like they look really good. And some of them have like no textures, but they still look brilliant.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love the giant.
But this particular level, it was like just one long path with the occasional staircase sort of changing the level, but it was essentially a straight line, and there was like a round platform towards the end of this line with some really, really badass elites on that we just had no chance against at all. Like we were not powerful enough to beat them. They were just smashing us every time. So we had 1 death left. We were on like, I can't remember the exact number. We must have been on 8 out of 9. And we were like, okay, we've got no choice. We're just going to have to make a run for it. Like get onto the platform, hit fear, hit any CC you've got, hit any immunity you've got, run through to the portal at the top of those stairs, which we can see just beyond this platform. And we'll get there. And, you know, when you get to a new floor, that resets your death count. The death count is only applicable to a floor, which is great because if you start a Torghast run and you instantly suffer like, you know, 8 out of 9 deaths, you don't need to call that run. You haven't completely blown that run straight away, because all you need to do is get off that floor. All you need to do is get to the end of the floor, and then you're at 0 again. And you've got a clean slate once you get onto the next floor. So there's always reason to be pushing on, no matter how many deaths you've had.
So
and
on the alpha at the moment, we can only play as demon hunters, mages, priests, or warlocks. So we don't know if things like paladin bubbles or going stealth as a rogue are ways to get around this, do we?
Exactly. I've got a feeling stealth as a rogue is going to have to be broken in some way, because otherwise, you can just wander through opening legendary chests as you go and not having to do anything else. But we made a run for it on this final, there were 4 of us, and we made a run for it, and we got onto the platform, and the mages went invisible. The demon hunter just obviously dashed. And poor little priesty me was completely caught and killed. And everyone else made it. And I was like, oh no, I'm stuck on this level. Everyone else has gone to the next level, and I've had to res at the beginning again, and I just couldn't get past these guys and these elites. And I was like, now the Tarragrue is gonna appear and kill everyone, kill me, and everyone else is gonna just be on the other platform and stuff. But no, because 3 of us were on the next level up, and on the next floor. That's where the Tarragrue spawned. So I was okay, but the Tarragrue killed all 3 of them on the other floor.
But I thought wait, how did that? I thought the Tarragrue only stayed on the floor that it spawned on.
Yeah. Well, it spawned on the one above for some unknown reason. And so I had another chance to get through the mobs, which I did. And then I got to the other floor where everyone was obviously dead because they'd been killed by the Tarragrue. But then the demon hunter rezzed and managed to get past the Tarragrue, and again made a dash for the
that's sick.
for the portal at the end of that level. And luckily it was a really short level with not many baddies or anything. Got to the end instantly and despawned the Tarragrue on our floor because the death counter had been put back to 0 by him going or her going up to the next level.
Sick. Oh, that's
so we were
cool.
and so I got to the floor, was instantly killed by the Tarragrue, and the demon hunter was like, right, no one else res until I'm done. Made a dash through the very few mobs that were there, outran the Tarragrue, got to the portal, reset the death counters again, and we were like, boom, and then we just rezzed and walked casually to the portal.
Oh, that's
it was
great.
Brilliant.
Oh,
and
that's
just
amazing.
moments like that, which were pure elation, and kind of just moments where you realize you've beaten the Tarragrue. And it's magical. It's fantastic. And at the moment, Torghast is full of such moments, full of moments of just like pure delight of things happening which you don't expect, and finding ways to do things that you don't expect. And at the moment, a lot of that is probably to do with alpha and things not quite working as they should, and there being little exploits and things that you can use. But it's just pure joy, and I found like every moment I've been in Torghast to be just full of joy, and I feel like playing it all of the time. Is that pretty much in line with your experiences, would you say?
More or less, yeah. I made this joke on the instance yesterday, which is like, I like it, but it's honestly kind of true. Like, I'm kind of the grumpy old man with World of Warcraft. I kind of like what I've liked since the beginning, and I'm not very drawn to a lot of new game systems. And that's pretty much been true for the majority of the lifetime of the game, be it Scenarios and Pandaria, which I hated, or Warfronts or Islands Adventure and BFA, which I find just mildly annoying. So I am personally excited to be excited for a big new game system in World of Warcraft, and also relieved because it does seem like Torghast is going to be such a big portion of the gameplay loop of Shadowlands. I'm just like, I feel good. I'm like, sweet, okay, whew, that's one big worry that I can put to the side in terms of the overall quality of this expansion.
What makes it so fun for you?
At the most base level, the whole damn thing just looks like Wrath of the Lich King, and it's just a place I am happy to
base level, dude.
I'm just happy to be there. They made a theme, and they made a never-ending theme park for me. Like, for what, It just looks good. I'm happy to be there. It's not a giant pink pyramid. B, I know there's a subsection of the community right now that kind of, watched that interview and we're like, oh, we're not going to get power ups this fast or whatever. And they're like, it's just not going to be that fun. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the term fun police thrown around this week after that interview. And I'm not nearly as worried because we are too powerful right now. It's a little ridiculous.
One of the reasons I'd say that we're too powerful is that the enemies don't scale.
Yeah.
So like, I believe that one of the super fun things about Torghast is how many power-ups you get. And okay, I buy the argument of getting slightly less. I think that makes sense. But I also feel like it's hard to judge based on the alpha right now because you just outgear the baddies at one point because the baddies don't get more powerful.
The thing is though, I'd like, don't get me wrong. I don't want to make a really passionate argument for scaling back how many abilities we get because it is very fun. But like, at what point is there diminishing returns on how awesome it is to get that many abilities? Because at the rate that we're getting them now, like how many truly unique abilities can they come up with to make it so that there are interesting abilities to continue getting as we climb higher and higher?
Well, I can confirm that 69 feels pretty good.
I'm so glad, Dalius.
I can confirm that 69 abilities is not too many. And it feels really good. A lot of these stack and things like that. So if there's one that you like and you're building on it, then it really feel like...
Tally, it depends on the quality of the 69.
Yeah, it certainly does. And that's the thing as well, because there's randomness about it. And this is, we were discussing this on stream yesterday. And this will, when we eventually get into discussing, how Torghast is actually implemented into the game when it isn't allowed to just exist in complete isolation, because it's not a roguelike, it's as much a roguelike as Warfronts are an RTS. It has to fit into the confines of WoW, and it has to be able to exist alongside the world of Warcraft that exists outside of it. It doesn't exist in isolation. You go in there and it's not a level playing field. You go in there with mythic gear from a mythic raid, you're going to have a lot more joy in there than someone who's going in with fresh leveling gear, for example, as you should, because that's how an MMO works. And that's how you would want it to work, but that's not how any roguelike works. Obviously, like roguelike games exist in isolation, or maybe, in the case of some of them, like power-ups that you get in certain runs can carry on into other runs and stuff. So the more you play it, the better you're going to get at it. But even that's not how World of Warcraft works. Like, you're going in there with gear that you've got from completely other sources. So you might have a level that you can get to in Torghast, which is your maximum level, and you just simply couldn't get any further because of the gear scaling and the enemies and what have you. And then you can go away and then you can gear up a bit in Raid, or another tier of raids later on, and suddenly you can come back and you can blow through floors that you couldn't even get close to before, because now you're that much more powerful. And that happens completely outside of the confines of Torghast. So it doesn't exist in isolation. It can't exist in isolation in the game, and that's a really important part of it, because in the alpha now, we're only playing it in complete isolation, which is why you get so many people saying, well, I want all of the power-ups, and I want, I want to be able to go in there as much as I possibly want. And I don't want any cap on the amount of like times I can go in there. And, I want it to have all these, it's great that my run lasts like 2 hours right now. And we can kind of take our time as much as we want. And that's why you're getting a lot of reaction against some of the things that were said in the interview. Which we'll discuss in a bit more detail, but
the concern about how frequently you're going to be able to access Torghast, I share that one. That's the one I share. Paring down how many abilities we get, all that kind of stuff. To me, I look at most of this as these are knobs that they can turn for adjustments. There's going to be a balance. They're going to try and find that balance, and how quickly we get X amount of abilities is a big one, and that is going to be in balance and be informed by the power and the scaling of the enemies that we fight, which is another knob that they can adjust.
Just before we get into the specifics of it, what were your favorite powers that you got as you went through there?
Um, I'm weirdly into the Fell Rush talent that makes Fell Rush do 400% more damage on a Demon Hunter because I liked how it immediately made me change how I play, because on a Demon Hunter, and I was playing solo, so I always just use Fell Rush just to just move faster through a space. But now suddenly it does a shit ton of damage, and like it's like, okay, I'm not going to use this just as mobility. I'm going to use it to burn things down for some burst damage, and I loved it. It was really fun.
And of course, that ability does stack as well, so you can just build on that.
Oh yeah,
and you can have your Fell Rush just completely destroying things. And that's what happens when you are just going from floor to floor, and the baddies aren't getting more powerful, but you are. But imagine that you needed to get those powers to keep up with the baddies, you know, or that the baddies were, or that all the time you're only keeping up as much as you can. The baddies are still kind of pulling ahead as you go up floor by floor. That's kind of what needs to happen. Like the baddies need to actually be scaling more than you. It's kind of like the reverse of what happens in WoW.
Yeah, like again, there's going to be a happy balance. Like you want it to feel like they're noticeably more powerful, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, Garrett, there has to be a point where it is insurmountable. Well, yes. Otherwise, your game will never end.
Well, that's where the how tuned, how quickly am I getting those abilities? That's going to play a role in that as well. The other one that I absolutely loved was, and this was a bit of a synergy thing, was like the Immolation Aura talents, because there's one that, okay, I found it. Control F is my friend over on Wowhead right now. Grim Tinder, dealing any damage refreshes the duration of Immolation Aura. I got this plus Immolation Flux, where the damage of Immolation Aura is increased by 50%. And I found that one, I think, twice. And I got Grim Tinder so that anytime I deal damage with Immolation Aura, it just keeps it going. And that felt awesome. Like I was just
Doesn't it feel good though? Did you, once you'd finished your Torghast run, did you go and do any questing or anything after that? Or did you do another Torghast run after that?
I went off to play different Blizzard games because they are all fire right now, Taliesin.
Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Just in case you didn't realize just listening to this, but all of these anima powers that you get are specific and exclusive to that particular Torghast run. Like they are temporary borrowed power. You do not take them out of the Torghast with you. You know, they are just for that run. And the second that run is over, you don't have those powers anymore. So you build them up for that specific run, and you use them in that run. And what that means is, if you've just done a run where you had 69 anima powers at the end, and you're like, this is amazing, particularly if they are ones that you really like. So on that particular 69 run, I got a power, and I was talking about this on the weekly reset, but I got a power which gave me a mount that I could mount up inside in the tower. So I could mount up and I could run around and I could cast while I was on that mount. And it was a cool rat dog thing. It was amazing. As soon as I got in combat, it disappeared. But then later on, I got another a different anima power that allowed me to stay on that mount while I was in combat. So now I had a permanent combat mount, and I was running around and like casting spells and doing damage and being in combat on this mount, and it felt amazing. And then obviously I took like every single speed boost there was going, so I had like this super fast mount, and I was just running around doing stuff, and it wasn't really good from a player power point of view, really, but it felt amazing. And I had all these incredible like talents and stuff. And then as soon as I was out of that Torghast run, I jumped straight back in again because it was so much fun. And when you start again with 0 anima powers after just having 69, it feels horrible. Like going in and starting Torghast again straight after having 69 powers, you're like, oh God, this feels janky and awkward, and this is what my class feels like all of the time.
I think that feeling will eventually subside, because eventually it'll just be Torghast. That's how it works. And
I guess so, yeah.
At the beginning of a new run, I think I'm looking at this like I look at limited card formats and card games and auto battlers, where like, okay, let's start, or hell, a MOBA where you gotta get new talents or go shopping every new game, right? Like you start with a core set of abilities, and then you build upon them as the game progresses, and then as reset back to level 1 at the start of every new MOBA game. And I think that's, I would hope that feeling subsides for you over time. because to me, part of the attraction and the replayability of something like this is that getting reset and that unknown element of the next climb. Of like, 100%. Well, I won't find these exact abilities again. And to me, I like that. And you kind of give yourself over to that randomness and embrace it. You're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to have a lot of variance from one run to the next. And it's like, oh God, I hope they start playing around with it a little more. Like if we can jump to level 25 in the live game, why not have a point where maybe something we work towards and we unlock eventually where you jump to 25, here's X amount of abilities that you can pick from before you even start that run. That'd be really cool.
Ooh, like that'd be cool.
What if you got to look at a big pile of abilities and select from them, almost like sealed in Magic the Gathering? Like, here's all your cards, build a deck. Like, that sounds so cool. I feel like
that's what they're going to have to do, because in that interview, Paul Cubitt was talking about the need for keys in Torghast. And I know like a lot of people... okay, so why not?
Because I can just see it. You've successfully gotten me legitimately passionate about a new game system in World of Warcraft, and you're going to make me do freaking weeklies and dailies to go play it.
I don't think that's what they mean, though. I think they're just using the key as a means to skip, say, 25 levels.
Oh,
so you start at level 25.
I thought we were having a conversation about how often we can even do Torghast.
No, that's a different conversation. I suspect we're going to agree with that. But no, I mean, I took him talking about a key in the same way that your key for Mythic Plus dictates which level Mythic Plus you're going to do, like it be a 14 or a 15. I would imagine that keys for Torghast would allow you to skip the first 20 levels of Torghast.
Oh, then I rescind my boo. I rescind my boo. No,
yeah,
I like.
And I think that's vital. You don't want to be starting from level 1 every single time. But the thing is, if you don't get free anima powers when you do skip, then it would be stupid not to start from level 1 every time. Because by the time you got to level 25, you'd have 69 anima powers that you wouldn't have if your key had just taken you in at 25 and not given you any anima powers. So like in the long run, you're going to get much, much further in a Torghast run if you start from level 1 than if you skip to level 25. If they don't give you free anima powers for doing that.
How much is gear going to play a role, though? Because gear should play some sort of role.
Yeah, gear will play a role, but the anima powers are also super important. Like, the fact is, if you jump in at 25 with 0 anima powers, like, obviously someone who's played from level 1 and got to level 25 is going to be in a much better position to go further from there than you are.
Well, that's going to be, that's like, part of...
and that's kind of the point. And so what you'll find is if they don't give you free anima powers jumping in at 25, then all truly top level players are going to be obligated basically to start from level 1 every time, which would be super boring for them, but it would be stupid of them not to, because why on earth would you start from level 25 with no anima powers when you could just play through from 0 and like greatly increase your chance of success in that run?
There would have to be some sort of incentive, and if there isn't, then it's a failure of design. Like, why would anyone bother? Because it would. You're right. You're absolutely correct that it would just be correct.
And also, it takes away a lot of the fun of it. You know, I part of the fun I actually find quite ironic that, you know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about WoW, and I watch a lot of people criticizing the game, rightfully so, a lot of the time. Lots of people whose opinions I really expect. And if there's two things I've learned about WoW, it's that the two things that are really bad about WoW and that ruin WoW are RNG and borrowed power. Okay, those are like two buzzwords I hear all the time, and it's like you can't even argue with it. RNG is bad, borrowed power is bad. Like, those are literally the two fun things about Torghast, which everyone loves. Like, the fun comes from the RNG, and the fun comes from the borrowed power. And I don't know, man. Maybe it proves that blanket statements about things aren't right, and that only a Sith deals in absolutes. But like, you know, these are literally what makes Torghast fun, and they're all things that have been. They're both words that have been anathema to WoW players for the last couple of years, and enough to make them angry when those words were mentioned. You know, and it just proves that in the right context, anything can work.
Yes,
anything can be good.
I mean, that's a really broad statement, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But this is an entire game mode based around RNG and borrowed power, like, and that's why, and essentially, like, roguelikes are that, like, and that's.
And the thing is, I wouldn't want to lose any of that RNG. And I don't really want to lose too much of that borrowed power either, because for me, those are the things that make it fun.
Exactly.
And
this wouldn't work without it. Like, I don't
No,
want to unlock permanent powers that I have access to every time I come in.
I think most people would agree with you. But that's then brings us to the context of how Torghast has to fit in the game. And this is where we have problems, okay? Because I, for one, am like incredibly surprised by how much I enjoy Torghast. When it was announced at BlizzCon with Shadowlands, I looked at it and I was like, okay, sounds cool, but I don't really know why it is and what it's for. And the last time I'd felt that was on the BFA announcement when they talked about Warfronts. You know, I was like, okay, cool, they look cool, but I don't know what they're for.
I share that exactly, because I thought Warfronts were PvP.
And that's what I felt about Torghast as well. And like, I quite enjoyed Warfronts in the alpha when we first did those as well. But I mean, I love Torghast in the alpha. I think it's fantastic. It's like a far superior mode of play to war modes. But even then, like, war modes weren't bad. I would argue that the context with which they were put into the game was bad. Like, as repeatable content, they didn't work. Like, you play a Warfront and it's fun. Like, if Warfronts were a singular scenario, like the Battle for Lordaeron that popped up in questing, and you'd done it once per character, and like you did Battle of Lordaeron, and like it was a point in the story, and they were like, oh no, the Horde are attacking Stromgarde, we have to go there and defend it, and you did the Warfront, you'd be like, that was amazing. That was like one of the best things that's ever happened in WoW. So the context of them putting it into the game and trying to make it repeatable content is what let that game mode down. Like, the content was good, and I would argue that the same with Islands. Like, going and doing Islands 3 times a week for my little chunk of Azerite power, I used to look forward to that. I used to really enjoy it, and I used to enjoy my time in the Islands, and I used to have fun there. The problem is they put it into the game with the context of, this is the most efficient way of earning artifact power, even after that initial chunk. So what it meant that anyone that actually really wanted artifact power had to grind hundreds a week, and obviously they weren't fun. And when that content becomes mandatory, it's not going to be fun. So I would argue that like Warfronts and Islands were both good content implemented wrong. Torghast is very good content. It could still be implemented wrong, and the context in which you experience it in game could spoil it and could ruin it. And a lot of that has to do with the things that are good about it, like the RNG and the repeatability, which brings us to the rewards and how you enter. And I really want to hear your opinions on this. I suspect I know the answer to the first one. How many times should you be able to do Torghast?
As many as you would like.
And I think that is the opinion of the community in general, particularly, like, surprisingly, including people that have played it. And for me, I completely agree. And that's one of the things that has started eyebrows twitching a little bit with this Paul Cubitt interview, where he said, well, you know, we are going to have to limit how many times you get into Torghast per week, because otherwise people will only do that. And also it becomes meaningless if you get to enter it as many times a week. And, you know, you are going to be given entries maybe. We haven't worked out how it's going to happen yet, but, you know, you are going to maybe be given a set amount of entries from your Covenant, and then maybe you can grind a currency like Nether Shards or something for the or like Coalescing Visions in 8.3 more recently, which will allow you to kind of enter as well. And whereas that's acceptable for something like Mage Tower or Horrific Visions, where the experience is the same, you're just trying to do it better each time that you fail and you go back in. That's not the case for Torghast. And like any roguelike, the fun comes from maybe getting completely dicked by RNG, failing, and then picking yourself up and dusting yourself down and going again straight away. Yeah, and I think that's where people are enjoying it so much. And the thing is, I don't want to lose the RNG, but if you limit people's, like, there's been times where I've gone into Torghast in a group, and the first room we've gone into has kicked our ass because it bugged maybe, but more likely because it just happened to be really hard compared to some other runs that we've done, which gave us a much easier kind of initial route, which allowed us to get some power-ups and stuff. And when we did hit the hard stuff, we were much better equipped to deal with it. And I don't want to lose that RNG of maybe the first room you go into is an absolute killer. Because that's fun. Like, that's super fun. Not knowing what you're going to get when you get in there is like incredibly enjoyable.
Well, I mean, WoW Killer is always fun.
Exactly. But if I'd farmed a currency for an hour, like in the Maw, to be able to go and enter Torghast, and the first room I went into was an absolute killer and it kicked my ass, that's not fun. And I'd be pissed off. This
is where you make RNG bad. You make it a bad thing.
Totally.
And this is, for me, this is all coming from a place of the WoW team has succeeded. They have successfully built a roguelike that I play through with my World of Warcraft character. I think they've done such a good job that the risk of making the RNG feel bad or having to rein in the RNG so that it doesn't feel as bad that's just as scary to me as the idea of and I'm with you. You've hit the nail on the head that I don't think you can limit access to a roguelike. I think you inherently hamstring the like base level fun of a roguelike, of why you want to play these things. You want the freedom to, you want to feel free to fail. And if we're suddenly counting coalescing visions, because like, oh shit, I can only do this 3 more times this week. Like that's bad. That feels bad. And
it doesn't feel as bad with Mage Tower, because like, if you fail Mage Tower, that's your fault.
I don't think it feels that.
Like, okay, cool. I need to do that differently next time I go in, because it's a standard experience. It's the same every time. Same with Visions.
I agree.
It's not with Torghast. But that leads us to our next question then, because I think we agree, obviously, with each other, but we also agree with the overwhelming opinion of the WoW community, particularly those that have played it on Alpha. Like the overwhelming opinion is, let us go in there as much as we like and let us play it like a roguelike.
Limit it.
The obvious question then, Garrett, is what do you do about rewards?
That's where we limit Torghast. Don't limit access to it. Limit the rewards. I mean, we've already learned this lesson. We've already learned this lesson with dungeons and raids. Why are we pretending that lesson hasn't been learned? That's where I start to get a little indignant. It's like, come on. I can run a freaking raid with my friends, even if I already ran it before. But like, I've already gotten my drop from that boss or from this other boss. Like, just apply that to Torghast. Torghast, like, however you want to limit it. If there's multiple things to grind, whatever, have that reset at the beginning of the week. Like everything else, tie it into the weekly reset. Like, this, to me, this is where I think I've done a really good job being a level-headed person that looks at all the angles. But this, I just go, how are you not even considering? How is this not the first thought in your head?
Yeah. Well, I hope this is where they go. It sounds like they're not at the moment, because and I feel like this is genuine feedback. But again, I think it's important to eloquate why we feel this way and show that we understand the reasons for them kind of instinctively not wanting to do it like that. Because you look at it from a WoW designer point of view, and they're using the lessons they've learned and everything else, and they're going, well, look, we can't make it infinite entry because, look what happened with islands. You had people, because of the rewards in there, and the rewards worked in diminishing returns in islands. Like, you got your initial chunk from doing your 3 and from doing your mission, and then you had less as you went in. But the players will always just play as much as they can to min-max it until it's not fun. So you'd say that was a soft cap on the rewards from islands. I think the only answer is a hard cap on rewards from Torghast.
Yeah, which
they have a maximum amount of legendary components that you can get in a week, and whether you get lucky and manage to get that all in one run, because you had a key that maybe. Because another thing they said is they want there to be more rewards the higher you get. So maybe there's like a reason to kind of use a key to start off at a higher level, because it'll be quicker to get the legendary components that you want. Like, you can do it in less runs if you start at level 25. And, maybe you'll get really lucky or have a particularly good run and you'll get all the components you need in one run. Maybe it'll take you 3 or 4 runs, but it doesn't matter. Like, the important, because, that the important thing is that as long as you do enough runs, you'll get your components. And that's the maximum that you can get. And as long as that number isn't too high, so that, you know, people are being forced to play more of it than they really want to, if they don't like it or whatever, then that seems like the way to go for me. But I think it has to be a hard cap, because even if you say, after the and another thing I'm seeing people say in the chat and also when I've discussed it with other people as well is like, you know, you limit the rewards to only your first 2 or 3 runs. That's like a very important thing to point out. Wouldn't work, because again, then RNG comes into it. And what if you just get really unlucky in your first 2 or 3 runs and you get dicked by like a much harder Torghast than like is possible, you know? And what if you get a really easy 3 runs and you get loads more rewards than you would have got if it had been harder? Like, I don't want to lose that RNG. I don't want to lose that feeling of, will it be like a particularly difficult opening, or will I be able to get through and stuff like that? So it's only the amount of rewards that need to be capped and not the amount of runs that you can get rewards from. So, you know, it could feasibly, if you kept dying in the first room, it could feasibly take you like 100 runs to get your legendary components, but you will eventually get them, sort of thing. Is what I feel.
Yeah. I keep coming back to there's so like all of this, whether we're talking about like how quickly you can ascend the tower or how often you can access the tower. Like it's all a question of tuning, and there's so many different avenues and angles to come at these issues from. And I'm just very concerned about this one particular angle that they seem to be hung up on, which is limiting access to Torghast, which I'm just like, I inherently don't think you can limit access to roguelikes.
No, I agree with you. And like, I don't want to take away the chance that your run could end before it's really begun.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take away the chance that you could get lucky and go on a run that's better than you deserve in a way.
Yeah. And may I say that I think the abuse of islands is a bad example, because I think islands were poorly tuned. The rewards from islands were not tuned correctly, and that's why it was abused.
Yeah. I still think the only answer to the problem there is to put a hard cap on Azerite power from
I agree.
islands.
Yeah, I agree. They should have.
And like, yeah. So, I mean, the problem with islands was not so much the tuning of the rewards, but the fact that the rewards existed beyond a certain point.
Yes.
Like, it would have still been the most efficient way to get Azerite if you'd only been able to get it from that mission, that weekly mission.
Yeah.
So you just did your 3 islands and then you were done. And then you could farm them for cosmetic rewards, which a lot of people did. Like, I know not a lot of top players did, but a lot of the community did farm islands for cosmetic rewards and quite enjoyed their experience, from what I gather, doing that.
Cosmetics are one of the number one things that I will just play a piece of content into the dirt for in World of Warcraft. And I rather enjoy it because it feels like I don't have to have it, but I would like it.
People who were farming islands for cosmetics generally had a really good time because they enjoyed the reason that they were farming the islands. And presumably they were only willing to farm the islands for cosmetics in the first place because they quite enjoyed islands. Whereas if you're farming for AP, like, that's a bad reason to be farming islands, because you're not going to be enjoying yourself. All you want is to like complete the thing as efficiently as possible. Which means that any RNG is incredibly frustrating, because if you come across crocodiles on an island, which are considerably harder to fight than like yaks or whatever, then you get annoyed because you're like, well, how come there's loads of crocodiles here this time? This is stupid and annoying. This takes me so much longer to clear than, and you know, you don't want to lose that feeling in Torghast. You want to be like, oh heck, there are crocodiles here. Damn, they're hard. This is going to be fun, you know. And that's super important. So for me, you have to put a hard cap on at least the power rewards, which means the legendary components. There's a comment here that says the mythic system could work where weekly rewards are dependent on your best run, and I think that's another thing that won't work, because again, a best run implies a meritocracy, which is not what Torghast really runs on. Like, you know, I want there to be an element of chance in how far I get in Torghast. That's like the fun. And I don't want to feel cheated out of I should have got 29 there and I only got to 28 because I got cheated by the RNG. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel like I got something less good in my weekly chest or whatever, because of the RNG, which is inherent to where the fun is in Torghast. I want the rewards to be disconnected from the RNG in Torghast, and that can only mean infinite entries and a hard cap on rewards. So you might be able to get it in one run of Torghast, you might be able to get it in 5, but it doesn't matter because you can go in whenever you want.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
The fun is in the experience. So if you can, whatever it is that we're capping, be it the legendary pieces or extraneous specific currency, a cap can be placed on all of that. And there's different ways you can tune it, how many you can get, how you acquire it. Because if you're acquiring multiple over the course of the week, there's so many different ways to kind of game that system and how you acquire it, right? And so I think there's a lot of, we get so lost in the weeds talking about all the different ways that could be done. But that's where I would like the focus to go and where I hope it shifts. Is that is my one major concern coming out of that interview, is limiting access to Torghast, because I think the second you do that, it calls into question so many other aspects of it. And like you said, like you hit the nail on the head with like concerns about polluting the fun of RNG, which is inherent to this tower climb. But other than that,
I don't want to turn at the moment in alpha. I'm turning a corner with my group. And by the way, can I just say, please, if you get a chance, play Torghast in a group. It's like so much more fun.
Well, tweet at me right now, listeners out there.
Immeasurably more fun. Like it's like more than any other game mode that you can do solo or in a group. It's so much more fun. There's something about it which is brilliant, and like the joy I've had in like turning a corner in Torghast, because you don't know what's going to be around that corner, and like you see some like awesome Dark Soulsy type room, which you can tell like this is a particularly scary room just in its design, and you can tell when they designed it, they're like, okay, we're putting extra spikes in this room, and dude, we're gonna do it so like really nasty bastards spawn in this room. Okay, so like you go into a hall or something, and there are just some absolute dicks of mobs there. And you're like, oh, what? These dudes? And you turn the corner. And at the moment, there's a joy when you see that. You're like, oh, no, we're dicked. And that's fun. But of course, if that was connected to your reward and you couldn't get back in there again straight away after you failed because you got dicked by these stupid mobs, which are stupid, then that joy disappears. Like, I don't want to turn a corner, see some incredibly difficult mobs and go, F you, Blizz. You dicked me on this run. Screw you. I want the feeling to be there that I have now, which is I turn the corner and I see those mobs and I go, oh, what awesome, cool. This is dumb.
There's a power fantasy at play here, like that on the level of like my favorite anime, like whether it's like Goku going up against a big baddie or One Punch Man, of just like, all right, let's see if this is finally worthy of if this is a challenge worthy of my strength, versus I got so screwed by RNG like that. I don't want that. There's a freedom that these types of game modes give you to revel in an impossible task.
Yeah. And now there is also like an argument against. Let's do both sides of the coin here. An argument against infinite runs is that you could have something like a Diablo Rift situation. I don't know how much Diablo 3 you play. Did you play any at all? Or?
I played a ton before they stopped putting out expansions for it.
Okay, so when you go into a greater rift.
Yep.
And I always call it a rift instead of a rift because I'm such a rocker. And when you go into a greater rift, and like you can tell straight away when you enter a greater rift if it's not doable. Like you go in and there are certain mobs there right at the very beginning. There's a certain layout and stuff. And you go in and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm walking out of this rift again and I'm going to come back in and hopefully it'll be better. And you just leave instantly. And like you do that a load in Diablo 3. And so the worry is if you can go in and out of Torghast as much as you like, then that's going to turn into. You're just going to like, if you don't get a really good anima power straight away, or you don't get an anima power straight away because there's just not one by the doorway or something, or if like you enter and there's a really hard like mob straight away, what's to stop you just turning around, walking out and resetting it and come back in? And because that would be a bad thing. That's not in the spirit of the thing. Is that a problem, do you think?
Potentially, but I think there's ways you could alleviate that. Like the most obvious is you could put some sort of like, it's lame, but like a timer, you know, like you do for like leaving a dungeon. But also like, again, it's probably a failure of the design of what you're going in there for, right? Of like the components that you're going in there for. If you can only get it for hitting X level, okay, I understand. But if you could potentially get it, if you could guarantee that you get your weekly cap of whatever components that you're going in for from X amount of runs instead of one efficient run up to X level, or you could do either or, then why would you even care about resetting?
Yeah, I guess so. And I've got to say that I've never felt the need to reset.
Well, speaking of reset, let me reset the Discord server real fast because you are a pixely.
I am. I'm trying to like close as well.
We fixed it.
Oh, that's better.
Huzzah!
That's a lot better. Oh, it was all on your end, not my end.
Beautiful, Chris Tally. Don't blame me. Blame Discord. I changed the Discord server, and now it's working.
Sweet. Thank you. Oh, I feel much better. I feel much better now. I feel much better. Thank you.
Wondrous.
I feel good. I was all fuzzy for a second there. But yeah, I wouldn't want to see Torghast descend into that level of. But maybe that's got something to do with the timer as well that Greater Rifts have. Yeah, I know I'm pixely again.
I give up. You sound good, so we'll just.
It's okay to be pixely, dudes. It's okay to be pixely. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah,
be proud of your pixelation.
I don't know. Like, do we have any sense of how many legendary components we're going to be able to pick up from a Torghast run?
I feel like, okay, let's pluck some numbers out of the air just from a talking about it point of view. Let's say your weekly cap is 500 legendary components. Now, Paul Cubitt actually said something quite surprising in his interview. He said that he would expect people who are playing the game a healthy amount, were his exact words. I would argue that a healthy amount is probably none. But he says that playing the game a healthy amount, he would expect people to get their first legendary within 2 weeks of hitting max level and opening Torghast. So probably about 3 weeks in for most players.
Do we know how many components you're going to need to craft a legendary?
Well, I mean, no, not yet. But that I don't think they do either.
Okay,
but that's what he said they're aiming for. So let's then say that you need 100 legendary components to craft legendary, and let's say your weekly cap is 50, and so you go in and let's say there's a legendary chest on every fifth floor or third floor or whatever, and so in on the fifth floor, which is very easy to get to, there's like 10.
Yeah, this is exactly where my brain is going. And then you get the level 10, and there's like 15 in that chest.
Yeah, exactly.
15, and there's so potentially 20.
You know what? Totally. So if everything goes, I'm just going to ignore everything that's going wrong with the Discord right now.
Oh yeah.
So if you are not like very good at Torghast, or if you are unlucky in your Torghast runs and you keep just dying at level 6, say, then it's going to take you 10 Torghast runs that week. It's going to take you 5 Torghast runs to get your 50 like bits. And if you're very good, you can do it all in one go, obviously, because you can get to level 5, then level 10,
or
level
you're very
15.
lucky.
Yeah, or lucky, which is just as good, just as fun.
Yeah.
That's how I would picture it, for sure.
That's how I'm hoping they make it, because I again, cap the rewards, not the experience.
I think I'm pleased to see how much we agree on this, and I'm also pleased to see how much the community agrees on it. When you've got top level players going, yeah, man, cap the rewards. I just want to be able to play this game mode. Like, cap the rewards. I don't care. I'll go in there with no rewards and I'll do it. I mean, that's what they say now.
I struggle to think of a time I've agreed more with a larger vocal majority.
But it's worth pointing out that at the moment, the only person who doesn't really agree with you, Paul Cubitt and the rest of the WoW dev team.
Yes, which is well, frankly, I'm used to as someone who has strong opinions about how we access things like flying, and wanting cross-faction gameplay. So I'm used to going, no, you're just wrong. It's okay. But this time, it's coming from a really positive place because I think, again, like I'm just so impressed with what they've accomplished in bringing an entire genre of video game into World of Warcraft, and doing it justice. So I'm just like, please do this right, and like do this game mode, the service I think it deserves, and I think it's just something so like we keep coming back around to it, and this is the last time I say it. I think there's just something inherently dangerous about limiting how often you can access a roguelike.
Yeah. Totally, because I think you undermine what makes a roguelike fun if you do that.
I agree.
And I feel like to balance that, you would have to chisel away and smooth off the edges of what make Torghast fun to make it acceptable to only have limited entrances, and that's not going to be fun. And like I got a bit of slack. I've got a bit of flack, sorry, in the latest weekly reset for saying, the actual words, this is how Blizz could ruin Torghast. But I kind of think it's true. They could. I mean, it's definitely ruinable. Like, Warfronts would have been brilliant if they were a one-off scenario. Blizz ruined it by trying to make them repeatable content. And they can do this. They can ruin Torghast by kind of doing the opposite. And like, it's like, how a good riff, if you come up with a good guitar riff, right? It's not just the notes that I do that all the time, but it's not just the notes of the riff that make a good riff. Okay. It's the tempo at which they're played. It's like the other things around that make a good riff. Like, just the notes of the riff aren't enough. You have to put them in the right context. You have to get the right tempo and the right pitch and play them on the right instrument. And that's where we're at with Torghast right now. The notes they've written for Torghast are awesome, but they can't mess up the delivery of it. They've got to get the right tempo, and they've got to get the right, pitch and tone. Yeah. Just the right amount of distortion. And,
Well, it depends. What genre are we in? Because sometimes there's no such thing as too much distortion.
Obviously, mate. We're in funk metal. We're in early 90s funk metal. That's where we are right now. Okay. Oh, come on. You've been in Torghast. We're in new metal. You know it.
Oh, without it.
We're in burning red era Machine Head right now. That's where we are. That's the kind of edge we're working with.
It's
that's
just one of those days. I go straight to Limp Bizkit anytime new metal gets brought up. Maybe it's because we are literally living in an apocalypse right now, and I have to choose my Mad Max music to blare from my doof wagon, and I definitely choose Limp Bizkit. But there's never been a better time. Been a better time to break stuff, Taliesin.
It's one of those days,
Feeling like a freight train. So, I think this
I'm glad that we solved Torghast anyway. Like,
we clearly
saved themselves a lot of work if they just listen to this podcast.
You've never felt more certain in my thoughts on how this game mode should work, by the way.
Well, I'm also a bit surprised because we get on very well, and I think everyone would agree we have the best podcast in the world. But we don't often agree. It's surprising how often we disagree on like how game modes work and things like that.
Yes.
So it's fun to see us like in complete on the same page with this.
It's far to pat ourselves to completely dive into patting ourselves on the back. One of my favorite things about the show is the fact that you and I tend to not agree and have respectable conversations regarding things we don't agree on, as opposed to saying whatever noob and downvoting each other. But
that's because we've never had a proper discussion about Pathfinder. So when that one comes along, maybe.
Yeah, we could do that. I would need to actually put a little thought into that so that I don't get accidentally heated like I did on the last episode. But yeah. No.
It was good. It was excellent. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, the fun in Torghast right now on Alpha is I'm still enjoying just diving in there with groups and, seeing the rooms and things that I haven't seen before. maybe getting lucky and going a bit further than I'm used to going, collecting powers that I haven't collected before, although I think I've kind of seen all of those now. But beyond that, it's just the new classes getting put into Torghast, because, you know, the range of anima powers and like class-specific anima powers that you collect as you go through there are actually like quite breathtaking. Like there's a huge range of them. And they're almightily varied. And if there's that much work put into every class, which you'd imagine there will be, Mage has some particularly fun ones.
I have
like,
not
that
even
we've noticed as we go.
gotten to play what is currently my main. Like, and
Right.
I can't wait. Oh my
There's
god!
one that that increases your arcane blast damage by like 1,000% or something if you do it when you're invisible. And obviously that's one of those stacking ones. So people build it up so it does like 200,000% damage or something, and they go invisible and they just like melt and one-shot bosses and stuff, and it's sick. But then there are also like kind of kiss curse ones where it gives you a big intellect boost, but you can't jump.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude,
Stuff like that,
I got
which I find really awesome.
Oh, I got one on my Demon Hunter. I don't know if it was a Demon Hunter specific or a general one, but what the hell? I don't remember what it did on the good end. I just remember that I couldn't walk backwards anymore.
You couldn't backtrack.
There's no backwards. There's something it gives you. It gave me a serious buff. I can't remember what it was. Like let me control F and type. Here it is, right here. Aetherium Diffuser. It is a general one. Inflicts shadow damage equal to 100% of all the damage you receive, split amongst enemies within 5 yards, but you're no longer able to step backwards.
Brilliant.
I was doing
brilliant. I love it.
The damage output was legit. It was so good. But I just couldn't walk backwards anymore. But it was fine.
I absolutely adore it, and it's brilliant. Our mage had the one where you couldn't jump, and I had one where I had a super jump, which, by the way, was also one of the most fun things that's ever happened, because I could jump like just over traps and stuff, and I could jump over and obviously the other player in the group was a demon hunter, so me and the demon hunter were jumping over huge chasms to get to like secret chests and stuff.
Oh, I love that there's no invisible walls.
Poor old Meiji couldn't jump at all. Poor Meiji was like, but I was having to like life grip him across gaps and things because he couldn't do anything. I was having to life grip him up steps
if
they were too like steep. I was brilliant, and I love that. I love that so much. There's a great one where the mage got an intellect boost for each floor if they performed a set sequence of spells in the correct order. And it would like give them the sequence of spells. And every time we went to a floor, we had to just stop for a bit because the mage had to go, I have to do these spells, hang on. And you have to do them in order. And one of those spells was summoning a mage table.
It's like Talrash's Elements from
at last,
Diablo. Like you gotta...
At last, the mage is always summoning a table. This is brilliant. It's like, that's dumb, but it's fun. It's fun just because. And yeah, it's really cool.
Well, it's really good flavor. It's really good flavor, which like if the fact that they are unpruning talents has taught us anything, like we actually care about like flavor, like class flavor, and God, I'm so stoked on this. So, anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this chat. I am certain it is not the last time we will talk about Torghast on this program, but it certainly is the first time. Of all the times we are going to talk about Torghast, this is definitely the first.
Yeah.
So, if you'd like to write in for our eventual next mailbag episode, wowkillercast@gmail.com is the place to do so. Write in, let us know what you think, be a part of the show. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You go to youtube.com/ I legitimately forgot because it's apparently not linked here. It is youtube.com/wowkiller. It's not wowkillercast. We actually got like the correct spelling of the show.
Nice.
If you want to watch us in video form where you can see my camera die and switch to this hideous web camera as a backup. This is what happens when I have off-brand batteries in my DSLR.
Wow. But you didn't switch to your off-brand sexy voice, though, so don't worry.
That
was all in place and present and correct.
Just putting a little less air through my lungs when I'm speaking.
Oh, is that how you do it?
I get this.
Oh my God, it works.
I just try less.
Now I'm doing it.
I get
this
less
is Taliesin,
excited.
not Garrett. Promise.
Taliesin, in your Batman voice, where can people find you?
If you want to listen to more Taliesin and Evitel, all you need to do is go onto Google and type Taliesin and Evitel. Maybe it will send you to our YouTube channel, Taliesin and Evitel.
maybe it'll send you to our Twitch channel, Taliesin and Evitel. Or maybe it'll send you to our Twitter, Taliesin and Evitel. Oh, I hate it when she does that.
My God, you even did an American accent.
Batman's American, Garrett. Are you such a bad nerd that you don't even know that? You're such a fake nerd. You don't even know that Batman's American.
Oh my God.
I can't believe that time Garrett outed himself as not a nerd by not even knowing that Batman was American.
I want everyone to go back
and listen. How I know Batman's American? Because I'm a proper nerd. And only people that have read all of the comics know that, Garrett. But I know because I've read all the comics. So I know he's American.
Our second Brit play him. So...
well, yeah. Although, I mean, you might have seen me quote the line that I think is the worst line in any Batman media ever, which is from the third Christopher Nolan Batman movie, which is the one that confirms how stupid Christian Bale's Batman voice is, which is when he's talking to Catwoman, and then Catwoman disappears, and he's like,
I hate it when she does that.
And you're like, you're by yourself, Christian. You don't need to do the voice anymore.
What if someone's watching?
You don't have to do the stupid voice anymore, Christian. You're by yourself. You're talking to yourself. Don't do the stupid, like, it was bad enough that you've got a stupid Batman voice. Okay, but fine. You're saving your voice or whatever. You're making it secret. You're by yourself now, Christian. Don't do the voice.
I hate it when she does that.
I just love that you're
before that bit, but then we got to that bit, and I was like, "This movie's rubbish."
And
I remember I actually looked at the person that I was in the cinema with, and she just looked back at me, and we just both kind of went.
I think that was the last midnight showing I went to. So I looked at my now wife and went, "I'm really tired. Are you really tired?" Folks, you can find me.
The last midnight movie I went to watch, last midnight premiere that I went to watch, Revenge of the Sith.
Oh wow,
yeah.
This is the intro that never ends because you mentioned Revenge of the Sith, the only good prequel, and I was on the local news because I went to it in full Anakin cosplay, and was interviewed by our local ABC7 about my Star Wars fandom.
And like the guy was like, so do you think this movie's definitely going to be good? And you were like, only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Well, I hadn't seen the movie yet, so I didn't know that was a line. So I probably made some terrible I don't like sand reference because we would have been living in a world where we hadn't yet seen episode 3, so we were still doing episode 2 quotes.
Oh, wow. Imagine a world with no episode 3 memes. I can't believe it. We did just watch all 3 of the prequels because we've got Disney Plus now. So once you've watched the weekly Mandalorian episodes, you're like, we really need to make the most of this subscription. We have to watch more stuff on Disney Plus because at the moment we're tuning in every Friday just to watch the Mandalorian, and we're like, this is not worth £60 £60 a year right now. And so we're like, okay, let's watch all of the prequels. And my God, they're terrible. I know there's a movement these days to pretend that the prequels aren't bad, but they are. They're really. Even Revenge of the Sith is an objectively badly made movie.
Oh, I disagree.
It is by far the best of the 3.
I love
I hate
3.
it. It's not okay. It's a terrible movie. It's just like more okayer than the other 2.
Oh, I love Revenge of the Sith.
It's a horrible.
I don't
movie.
like the No, and I don't like She Lost the Will to Live. I love everything else about that movie. It's great.
She died of a broken heart, Garrett. She died of a broken heart. She named her children by them popping out of her and then being held in front of her face and her going, Luke, Leia.
Listen,
Who's
man,
ever named their children like that?
You don't get absolutely hyped when Uba, baby delivery droid, comes out, then I don't want to be your friend anymore.
Okay, look, right. They all have their moments. But like, you just see the terror. Like, they're like, okay, so we'll finish this episode in a minute, I promise. But like, the thing I hate is the prequel revisionism. Like, I hate it when people are like, hey man, you make fun of the CGI, but it was okay for like the early 2000s. And it was not. I was there. I saw those movies in the cinema, and every single one I came out with whoever I saw that movie with, and we were both laughing at how terrible the CGI was. The CGI was never good in the prequels, and I'm not having people saying that it's okay now. It's not. It's bad. They're badly written. They're badly edited. Like, they're objectively bad movies. Like, they might be fun. Like, The Room is an objectively bad movie, but it's awesome. It's brilliant. It's incredible. But, like, you can't say it's a good movie. It's clearly not. The prequels, like, are genuinely worse than The Room. Like, they're genuinely worse made than The Room. Like, there's like, they suffer from all of the same problems as The Room. Like, the scripts don't make sense. There's no flow. Like, you've got, okay, in the first one, there's like an action sequence where Duel of the Fates is playing, okay? And it's like the best, most exciting music ever written. And it's like dum dum diddlum, dum dum diddlum, dum dum diddlum, dum dum diddlum, ba 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 ba. And you're like, holy shit, I am so pumped. I want to drive a car really fast now. And like, it cuts to a scene where you're in a hangar for like, I've counted it, 4 seconds, and nothing happens on screen while Duel of the Fates is playing. A hangar. Nothing happens. It's a hangar. And you go, ba 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 ba. Okay, if this is the scene, this is what happens in the scene, okay? This is a spaceship. This is a spaceship right now, okay? And the scene cuts, and it cuts to this scene. Bum 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 bum.
Taliesin is not in frame of camera for the audio-only listeners. He just walked past his camera. I'm looking at just his chair.
It's the worst thing. It's a terrible movie. It's an awful movie. They're all bad. They're like, just one of them's less bad than the others. That's all. The end.
So I have things I need to do today. So I don't feel like getting into a Star Wars debate with you. 1 and 2 are objectively terrible films.
And all I'm saying is that's how Torghast could go if we're not careful. That's all I'm saying.
1 and 2 are objectively terrible films. You are straight wrong about episode 3. You can find me at Garrett Art on Twitter. Everything else is at amove.tv. A lot happening in Hearthstone right now, so go subscribe to the Angry Chicken. A lot happening in Heroes of the Storm right now. No, it is not a dead game. They just did a major overhaul of how we play that game. Go listen to that over at Into the Nexus. I love you, Revenge of the Sith. I love you deeply. Go watch the Clone Wars, the animated series, Taliesin. Get some good Star Wars in your life. And until
I watched Rogue One yesterday. Don't worry, it's brilliant.
Oh, I love Rogue. Oh, okay. If you like Rogue One, okay, we can be friends again. All right, thank you.
Rogue One is the movie that needed to happen after the prequels.
Oh,
like,
praise Jesus. Okay.
Rogue One is the film that got me back into Star Wars. I was like,
thank God.
Rogue One is what the prequels should have been.
Oh, so many people shit on Rogue One.
Awesome.
I love Rogue One.
Rogue One's probably my favorite Star Wars movie.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun to watch.
That's controversial.
Again, problematic and sort of it has some pacing and there's some problem. But I love watching it. It's just fun.
Show me a Star Wars movie that doesn't have some problems with pacing though. But like,
fair. Empire Strikes Back.
Awesome. It's awesome. Show me a Shakespeare play that doesn't have problems with pacing. In fairness, like, you know.
Fair. Well, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of WoW Killer / Star Wars. I have a Star Wars
everyone.
podcast. I guess we should.
You tune into a podcast with 2 white guys talking about shit. Star Wars is going to get brought up eventually.
It's gonna. What
are you going to do?
What are you going to do? 20 things wrong with The Last Jedi, starting never. This is the end of the show, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next week. Until then, good luck and have fun.
I love Last Jedi.